They snickered when she walked into the Cambridge Academy auditions wearing a simple gray dress. When Dr. Harmon mockingly asked her to perform the notoriously difficult Queen of the Night aria, he expected embarrassment. But when Emma Reynolds opened her mouth to sing, the prestigious music school discovered they had just tried to humiliate a world-class opera star. The Cambridge Academy of Vocal Arts stood majestically against the crisp Boston autumn sky, its historic brick exterior radiating prestige and exclusivity. Inside, nervous energy filled the audition hall as aspiring vocal instructors prepared to demonstrate their talents before the Academy's selection committee and a small group of student observers. Emma Reynolds slipped through the heavy wooden doors, her auburn hair neatly pinned back, wearing a simple gray dress that hung loosely on her slender frame. Unlike the other candidates in their tailored outfits and designer accessories, Emma carried only a worn leather folder containing her sheet music. Her face, free of makeup, save for a touch of lip balm, betrayed nothing of her nerves as her blue eyes scanned the room. "Name, please?" asked the administrative assistant, barely looking up from her clipboard. "Emma Reynolds," she replied softly. The assistant's pen hovered over the list. "I don't see AO. Here you are. Last-minute addition." Her tone suggested this was hardly impressive. "Take a seat with the other candidates. Dr. Harmon will call you when it's your turn." Emma nodded and made her way to the back row of chairs, acutely aware of the sideways glances from the other applicants. Their whispers weren't quite quiet enough. Who's she supposed to be? Probably applied for the janitorial position and got the wrong room. Does she even know what the Cambridge Academy is? Emma kept her expression neutral as she settled into her chair. She'd expected this reaction. It was precisely why she'd come dressed this way, with no resume preceding her. After years of being lauded as the voice of her generation and America's newest opera sensation, she craved something genuine, a position earned on merit alone, not reputation. At the front of the room, Dr. Richard Harmon, the Academy's veteran vocal director, sat behind a grand piano, his silver hair and impeccable dark suit projecting authority. Behind him, a blackboard displayed opera solo auditions today in precise chalk lettering. Next to him sat two other committee members, and off to the side, a small group of students, the Academy's young protégés, permitted to observe the selection of their potential new instructor, Vanessa Cartwright. Dr. Harmon called. A tall woman in an elegant black dress approached confidently, her resume extending before her like a shield. "Good morning, Dr. Harmon. I've prepared Puccini's O mio babbino caro." "And yes," he interrupted, scanning her credentials. "Eastman School of Music. 5 years with the Chicago Lyric Opera. Impressive. Let's hear what you got." As Vanessa sang, Emma observed Dr. Harmon's reactions, the subtle nods, the occasional note-taking. He was fair but demanding, stopping another candidate mid-area to correct a breath technique. "Your diaphragmatic support is inconsistent. This is basic technique, Mr. Peterson." Next, each candidate brought impressive credentials, degrees from Juilliard, performances with major companies, international competition medals. With each introduction, Emma felt the weight of her decision to come incognito grow heavier. She had stripped away all external indicators of her accomplishments, bringing nothing but her voice and knowledge. The young students in the corner whispered among themselves, clearly recognizing names and achievements. One girl with dark braids pointed excitedly when a former Metropolitan Opera performer took the floor. As the morning progressed, the pile of resumes on Dr. Harmon's desk grew, each representing years of formal training and professional recognition. Emma's hand instinctively touched her folder, which contained only sheet music. No list of accolades, no press clippings, no glowing recommendations from renowned conductors. "Emma Reynolds," Dr. Harmon finally called. Checking his watch with barely concealed impatience, Emma stood, smoothed her simple dress, and walked toward the piano with quiet confidence. The moment of truth had arrived. Emma stood before Dr. Harmon, her posture relaxed yet proper, the result of years of training now appearing as natural ease. She offered a small smile which the committee did not return. "Your resume." "Miss Reynolds," Dr. Harmon extended his hand expectantly. "I haven't brought one, sir. I'd prefer to be evaluated solely on what I demonstrate today." A ripple of murmurs spread through the room. Dr. Harmon's eyebrows shot up, disappearing beneath his silver hairline. "I see," he said, drawing out the words. "How unconventional. And where did you study, Miss Reynolds?" "Here and there," Emma replied vaguely. It wasn't a lie. She had studied at Curtis Institute before her meteoric rise, followed by private coaching with masters across Europe. Dr. Harmon exchanged glances with his colleagues. The woman to his right, Dr. Abernathy, didn't bother hiding her disdain. "This is the Cambridge Academy, not a community talent show." She muttered just loud enough for Emma to hear. "Perhaps you're unaware," Dr. Harmon continued, folding his hands on top of the piano, "but we're selecting instructors for exceptionally gifted students. Our faculty must have impeccable credentials and experience." The students in the corner watched with wide eyes. One boy whispered to his friend, receiving a sharp SH from the chaperone. "I understand," Emma said. "I believe I can offer valuable instruction regardless." Dr. Harmon's mouth twitched. "And what will you perform for us today?" Emma carefully placed her sheet music on the piano stand. "I'd like to perform a fugues from Mozart's The Magic Flute, Pamina's aria." Dr. Harmon sniffed. "Rather safe, isn't it?" "A student piece." Emma held his gaze. "It's emotionally complex indeed," he said, clearly unimpressed. His fingers hovered over the keys. Then he abruptly closed her music. "Actually, I think not." Emma blinked, the only sign of her surprise. "If you wish to instruct at this academy, Miss Reynolds," Dr. Harmon continued, a challenging glint in his eye, "you should demonstrate true technical mastery." He reached into his own folder and extracted sheet music, placing it deliberately before her. "This would be more appropriate." Emma glanced down at the score and felt her heart skip. "Der Helle Rache, the Queen of the Night's second aria, notorious for its difficulty, requiring precision, range, and extraordinary breath control, unless, of course, it's beyond your capabilities," Dr. Harmon added, his tone making it clear he expected her to back down. Behind him, one of the committee members shifted uncomfortably. "Richard, that's hardly fair for an audition piece." "Without preparation, on the contrary," Dr. Harmon interrupted. "Any qualified vocal instructor should be able to handle standard repertoire. Our students certainly are expected to rise to challenges." The students watched with a mixture of discomfort and fascination. One girl with glasses whispered, "That's the hardest aria in the soprano." Repertoire. Emma absorbed the tension in the room, the expectation of her failure hanging palpably in the air. She recognized this moment for what it was, not just a challenge, but an attempt to publicly humiliate her for her presumption in applying without credentials. Dr. Harmon smiled thinly. "Well, Miss Reynolds, shall we proceed, or would you prefer something more attainable?" Emma took a slow, centered breath, the kind she'd perfected during countless performances on the world's greatest stages. She'd sung this aria hundreds of times at the Metropolitan Opera at La Scala in Milan. At the Vienna State Opera, she'd recorded it for her Grammy-winning album 3 years ago. "This will be fine." "Thank you," she said, meeting his gaze with newfound determination. Dr. Harmon's smile faltered slightly at her confidence. He turned to the keys, fingers poised. From the beginning, then, as the distinctive, ominous introduction began, Emma closed her eyes briefly, centering herself. Around her, the room grew still with anticipation. Some eager to witness her failure, others anxious on her behalf, none suspecting what was about to unfold. As Dr. Harmon's fingers danced across the keys, Emma felt a momentary wave of doubt wash over her. Not about her ability to perform. She knew this aria intimately, but about her plan. Was it deceptive to hide her identity? Would revealing her true self this way seemed like a publicity stunt, rather than a genuine pursuit? The introduction neared its conclusion, leaving her only seconds to decide. She glanced at the students watching from the side of the room, young, hopeful faces, some leaning forward with concern, others whispering behind cupped hands. She thought of her own journey, how different it might have been with mentors who valued pure talent over connections and appearances. The final introductory notes hung in the air. It was time. Emma straightened her shoulders, her posture subtly transforming as muscle memory took over. Her rib cage expanded with a proper singer's breath, deep, controlled. invisible to the untrained eye, but immediately recognizable to professionals. Dr. Harmon noticed his fingers faltered almost imperceptibly on the keys, but he continued playing. A slight furrow appearing between his brows, Emma's decision crystallized. She would sing, not as Emma Reynolds, the incognito applicant, nor as Emma Reynolds, the opera star, but simply as a musician who loved this art form enough to teach it with integrity. The first coloura passage approached a series of runs that separated skilled sopranos from truly exceptional ones. Round her, the atmosphere in the room shifted from dismissive to attentive. Dr. Abernathy leaned forward slightly. The students had stopped whispering. Emma took a measured breath, engaging her diaphragm fully. The technique was so ingrained that it required no conscious thought, leaving her mind free to focus on expression, on the character's rage and determination, emotions that now mirrored her own. As she prepared to sing, Emma caught the eye of one student, a girl of perhaps 15 with auburn hair not unlike her own, watching with undisguised hope. The girl offered a tiny, encouraging smile. That smile sealed Emma's decision. The first note emerged from her lips, perfectly pitched and controlled. Emma held back, not yet revealing her full capacity. Even so, the note rang clear and true, filling the audition hall with unexpected resonance. Dr. Harmon's head snapped up, his fingers continuing mechanically while his eyes fixed on Emma with new interest. The committee members exchanged glances. Emma approached the first difficult run, still restraining herself. Though her technique remained flawless, she could feel the atmosphere in the room changing, confusion replacing condescension, curiosity replacing dismissal. The young students sat transfixed, some with mouths slightly open. The girl with the encouraging smile now leaned forward, her expression one of wonder. As Emma progressed through the aria, she made a split-second decision. For the next passage, one of the most challenging in all of opera, she would no longer hold back. She would sing as she did on the world's greatest stages. She met Dr. Harmon's increasingly bewildered gaze directly as she took a deeper breath. His fingers moved mechanically over the keys, his shock evident in his widened eyes and the rigid set of his shoulders. The moment stretched between them. Teacher and supposed student, evaluator and candidate, man who had intended humiliation, and woman about to turn the tables. A ghost of a smile touched Emma's lips before she launched into the infamous high F passage with the precision and power that had made critics call her once in a generation. The note soared, crystalline and effortless, filling every corner of the room with its perfect resonance. Several people audibly gasped. Dr. Abernathy dropped her pen. One of the students whispered in Eric, "Oh my God." Dr. Harmon's fingers stumbled on the keys, but Emma continued, no longer needing the accompaniment, her voice carrying the aria forward with undeniable mastery. The decision had been made. There was no turning back now. Emma's voice soared through the hall with breathtaking clarity, each note pristine and powerful. The famous staccato coloura passage, a notorious challenge that had defeated countless sopranos, flowed from her with effortless precision. Each high F pierced the air like a perfectly aimed arrow, holding steady without the slightest waver. Dr. Harmon's accompaniment grew increasingly unsteady as his attention divided between the keys and the extraordinary performance unfolding before him. His earlier smugness had vanished, replaced by unconcealed astonishment. The room had fallen into stunned silence, interrupted only by occasional gasps when Emma executed particularly difficult passages with supernatural ease. Even the other candidates, who moments ago had dismissed her, now watched with a mixture of admiration and dawning recognition. That technique, one whispered. The breath control. Wait, isn't she? Another began, leaving the question hanging. Emma had entered what performers called the zone, that transcendent mental state where technical concerns faded and pure artistic expression took over. Her hands previously clasped modestly before her now moved subtly with the music. Her posture had transformed, her presence expanding to fill the space as naturally as her voice did. As she approached the aria's climactic passage, Emma locked eyes with Dr. Harmon. His fingers trembled visibly on the keys. She took a deeper breath. the kind that signaled to experienced musicians that something extraordinary was coming, and launched into the final sequence of Calarura runs with a level of virtuosity that left no doubt about her true identity. The young piano accompanist sitting in the corner suddenly sat straight up, recognition dawning on his face. "That's Emma Reynolds," he exclaimed, unable to contain himself. "That's her signature cadenza." A ripple of shocked murmurs spread through the room. Dr. Abernathy's hand flew to her mouth. The students began whispering excitedly among themselves, several pulling out phones to confirm their suspicions. Dr. Harmon's hands froze above the keys, but Emma didn't falter. She completed the aria unaccompanied, her voice soaring through the final passages with the control and expression that had earned her standing ovations at the Metropolitan Opera. The final note hung in the air, perfect and pristine, before fading into profound silence. For several seconds, no one moved. Then, from the student section, the auburn-haired girl who'd smiled at Emma earlier burst into spontaneous applause. The other students immediately joined. Rising to their feet, the candidates followed, then the committee members, all except Dr. Harmon, who remained seated at the piano, his expression unreadable. Emma stood quietly, accepting the ovation with a simple nod. She had not come for adulation. As the applause continued, the young piano accompanist approached Emma, holding out a program from the previous season's Metropolitan Opera Gala. "Miss Reynolds," he said, voice trembling with excitement, "I was at your Lucia D. Lammer last year. Would you mind?" Before she could respond, Dr. Abernathy rushed forward, practically pushing the young man aside. "Miss Reynolds, we had no idea. Your application gave no indication." She glanced accusingly at Dr. Harmon, who still hadn't moved from the piano bench. Emma smiled. "Gently, that was intentional, Dr. Abernathy. I wanted to be evaluated on my current abilities, not my reputation." Dr. Harmon finally stood, his complexion notably paler than before. He approached Emma with measured steps, stopping a respectful distance away. "That was," he began, then paused, struggling for words. "Technically flawless, but I must ask, why the charade? Why come to us as this?" He gestured at her simple attire. The room fell silent again, all eyes on Emma as she prepared to answer the question that hung in the air. Why would an internationally acclaimed opera star disguise herself as an ordinary applicant for a teaching position? "It wasn't a charade, Dr. Harmon," Emma said, her voice now carrying the quiet authority of someone accustomed to being heard. "It was an experiment, one that proved rather illuminating." The room remained utterly silent, hanging on her every word. Even the students had stopped fidgeting, their young faces rapt with attention. "3 years ago, I stood on the stage at La Scala," Emma continued. "Last year, I sang for the president at Kennedy Center. But before all that," she gestured around the room, "I was a student just like them." She nodded toward the young observers. "I know what it means to be judged on appearance rather than ability." Dr. Harmon cleared his throat. "Ms. Reynolds, surely you understand that credentials and experience are relevant considerations for a teaching position." "Of course," Emma interrupted gently, "but you didn't reject me for lack of credentials, Dr. Harmon. You never asked for them. You judged me the moment I walked through that door in this dress." Color flooded his face. "That's not you assigned me an impossible area as a punishment for my presumption," she continued, her tone matter-of-fact rather than accusatory. "Not to evaluate my ability, but to humiliate me in front of everyone." The uncomfortable truth hung in the air. Several committee members shifted in their seats, unable to meet Emma's gaze. "If I had walked in wearing designer clothes with my Grammy in hand and the New York Times calling me the voice of a generation, would you have treated me the same way?" she asked. Dr. Harmon had no answer. "That," Emma said, turning to face the students, "is exactly the problem I hope to address by teaching here. Talent doesn't care about appearances. Music doesn't care about pedigree. But too often the people who guard the gates to musical education do." The auburn-haired student suddenly spoke up. "Is that why you're here? To teach us?" Emma smiled warmly at her. "I want to teach because I remember what it was like to be you. Passionate about music, but uncertain about belonging in this world. I've had every advantage now, but I never forgot how it feels to be dismissed. Dr. Abernathy stepped forward, practically glowing with the opportunity to salvage the situation. Ms. Reynolds, please accept our sincere apologies for this misunderstanding. We would be honored to have someone of your caliber join our faculty. In fact, we could offer you the department chair position. That's very kind, Emma said. But I didn't apply for department chair. I applied to teach the introductory voice classes, the ones for scholarship students who come from backgrounds without private tutors and European summer programs. A murmur rippled through the committee members. Those classes were typically assigned to junior faculty or graduate assistants, not world-renowned sopranos. But surely Dr. Harmon found his voice. Someone with your talent would prefer advanced students. Emma's gaze was steady. Everyone deserves a teacher who believes in their potential. Dr. Harmon, especially beginners. From the corner, the piano accompanist who had recognized her spoke up. Ms. Reynolds has been running a free voice program in underserved Boston schools for the past year without publicity. My sister teaches elementary school there. All eyes turned back to Emma, seeing her anew, not just a famous soprano in plain clothes, but someone whose actions matched her words. Dr. Harmon's expression had transformed from shock to something more complex, a mixture of embarrassment, respect, and genuine regret. Ms. Reynolds, he said finally, his voice quieter than before, would you be willing to reconsider your application, not as a publicity stunt for the Academy, but perhaps as a lesson for all of us, myself included? Emma studied him, searching for sincerity. That would depend, Dr. Harmon, she said carefully, on whether you're willing to reconsider how you evaluate all applicants, not just the famous ones. 3 months later, Emma stood in classroom 3 of the Cambridge Academy of Vocal Arts, watching as her students practiced breathing exercises. The walls were adorned with portraits of opera legends, including somewhat embarrassingly to Emma, one of herself, but also newer additions, photographs of diverse performers from non-traditional backgrounds who had made significant contributions to classical vocal music. A knock at the door interrupted the lesson. Dr. Harmon stood in the doorway, his demeanor markedly different from their first encounter. Less imperious, more Khalil. May I observe for a moment, Professor Reynolds? He asked. Emma nodded, gesturing for him to enter. We're just finishing breath support techniques. Perhaps you'd like to demonstrate the contrast between clavicular and diaphragmatic breathing, Dr. Harmon. He smiled at the invitation. I believe your demonstration would be far more effective. As Emma showed her students the proper technique, Dr. Harmon watched with genuine interest. The Academy had changed subtly, but significantly since that fateful audition day. The application process now included blind auditions for the first round. The scholarship program had been expanded, with Emma's foundation matching the school's funds dollar for dollar. When the students were dismissed, Dr. Harmon approached Emma's desk. The board meeting went well, he said. Your proposal for the summer outreach program was approved unanimously. I'm glad to hear it, Emma replied, gathering her music sheets. The question is whether we're willing to recognize and correct them. He nodded slowly. I've spent 40 years teaching technique, theory, and repertoire, but you've taught me something far more valuable these past months. He gestured toward the departing students, the way they respond to you. It's not because of your fame or your awards. It's because you see them. Really see them. Emma smiled. That's the greatest gift a teacher can offer. As they walked toward the faculty lounge, they passed the audition hall. The piano still stood in the same spot, but beside it now was a new sign. Talent has no uniform. Your suggestion, Dr. Harmon acknowledged, following her gaze. It serves as a daily reminder for all of us. The auburn-haired student from the audition day, now Emma's most promising pupil, approached them in the hallway, clutching sheet music. Professor Reynolds, I've been practicing that Puccini piece, but the high passage is still giving me trouble. We'll work on it tomorrow. Sarah, Emma assured her. Remember, even the most difficult passages yield to patience and proper technique. As Sarah nodded and hurried off, Dr. Harmon turned to Emma. You know, the Academy is hosting the Governor's Arts Gala next month. We were hoping you might perform. Emma raised an eyebrow. As the famous soprano or as the humble teacher? Dr. Harmon chuckled. as yourself, Emma Reynolds, who has proven to be remarkable in both roles." He paused, "And perhaps, if you're willing, we could announce the new Emma Reynolds Scholarship for students from non-traditional backgrounds." Emma considered his words. "I'd be honored, Richard, but on one condition. Name it. That the judges for that scholarship never see the applicants' clothes, backgrounds, or anything else irrelevant to their potential, only their passion and their voice." Dr. Harmon extended his hand. "I believe we can make that promise and keep it. If this story touched your heart, remember that appearances rarely tell the whole story about a person's talent or character. Have you ever misjudged someone based on first impressions only to be proven wonderfully wrong? Share your experience in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that celebrate hidden talents and important life lessons. Hit that like button if you enjoyed Emma's journey, from being underestimated to creating meaningful change. Where are you watching from today? We'd love to hear from our community across America and beyond. Until next time, remember, true talent shines through, no matter how simple the packaging.